Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Skirbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. Welcome, and we're going to start today, with our friend Reverend Denise Roberge. Hi,
Hello,
Denise.
everyone. Nice to be here again.
This is the official start of High Tea 2022.
Woohoo! It's number 13.
Lucky number 13. Of
Lucky
course,
number 13.
yeah. 13 is the number of transformation, of death and
Yes.
rebirth. And so perhaps this is kind of that energy for our high tea as well.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. It's been a lot of fun, some great conversations that we've had.
Yeah.
And we want to continue that in 2022. We weren't quite sure what we wanted to talk about today. So we sort of decided that we were going to have the goddesses have a say. So Denise pulled a goddess card. So why don't you show us what that is and what
Sure.
it's about?
This goddess is called Nematona, and I would like to, and it's about sacred space. And the message on it says, create an altar or visit a power place to connect with the divine, which is a beautiful, perfect message for times like this that are sort of confused or chaotic, or out there. I don't mean in the inside, but out in the world, there's a lot of stuff that can impact our mood and impact our well-being if we let it. And that's the key, if we let it.
Mhm.
So I'm going to read who she is, because honestly, I don't know all these goddesses. I don't know the background. So I just want to read a little bit about who she is before I talk about the meaning of the card, because I'll get more vibe from it. Nematona's name means sacred grove because she protected the ancient Celtic ceremonial sites, which were outdoors in groves of trees. Nematona continues to watch over sacred sites, especially those connected with nature. She'll help you build your own sacred space and will assist with medicine wheel or labyrinth ceremonies.
Ooh.
So she's Celtic and she takes care of sacred spaces. I think that's wonderful. And very briefly, I'd like to say that I have altars all over my house, and wherever if I start feeling like I find the closest one, and they might have crystals, or they might have feathers, or they might have statues, or they have one altar to all the people that I love that have crossed over. And sometimes scanning them, and there's many of them, I get a really nice warm feeling, like, oh, you're here, Auntie, or you're here, Dad, or whatever. And that lifts me up. I'm no longer sad that my dad is gone, because we have a nice relationship. So when he comes to me, it's always comforting. Anyway, that's one of my altars. I have a whole bunch. But I'd like to talk, Vicki, a little bit about sacred space and what that means. Do you want to have a little input first, or do you want me to keep on going?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part of sacred space means is equal, I would say, equal to self-care. Self-care means creating a sacred space for yourself. So there's all kinds of self-care. I know that my brain is the part of me that needs the most self-care. So I have to do things like visualizations every now and then of peaceful vistas or goddesses or whatever, and I meditate on them, or I light up a candle and do positive affirmations. But I do something ritualistic. I might light some sage. If I'm feeling kind of crappy, sage brings me up. Did you know that both Palo Santo and sage are related to frankincense? Like, they're in that family. And
No, I didn't
yeah,
know.
they're in that family, and they both have properties in them that are similar in chemical structure to antidepressants, to SSRIs. So sacred smoke is very, very helpful anytime one wants to connect with the divine or wants to lift their own vibration or connect with guides or any of that sort of thing. So I love Palo Santo, and I love sage, and there are others too. I don't use traditional incense because I like the natural ones better. I like things right off a bush.
Right, right,
I
right.
like the stuff right off the bush, even if it comes from the Amazon and it's 3 months old. By the time you get it, I know it's from a bush.
Right.
So anyway, sacred space, create an altar or a power place to connect with the divine. So I I would recommend that everyone have a sacred space in their home, an altar to sit at or to put your most precious objects on and connect with them, because connecting with your most precious objects reconnects you with your own heart, which reconnects you with the divine.
Right.
It's a beautiful circle. So anything that you find precious. I have an Egyptian altar because I really connect with Isis and ancient Egyptians, and I have a Buddhist altar because I connect with Buddha. So
Don't you have a Wizard of Oz altar as well?
I have Wizard of Oz in every room of my house. Yes, I have. Now I have the thing that is, when I need a laugh, I need a chuckle. I have a figurine of the Wicked Witch, which is from the legs down with the ruby red slippers on after she had gotten the ruby red slippers and then the house fell on her.
Yep.
So her legs sticking out from under the house. I have it sticking out from under a cabinet in my living room. And there's something about that. I look at that and I go, the witch is dead. And for me, it's like the demons are dead and the crazy thoughts are dead, and it's not, none of that is real. I find meaning. Wizard of Oz is very meaningful. It's very spiritual to me, and so I get inspired by a lot of things. And getting outside of my own head is sacred. And then when I light a candle, use some incense, go to one of my altars, and sort of meditate on some of the objects. I do connect with the divine. And music in the background, if I want to do a serious session with myself, I put some music that seems really angelic or really calming or really soothing on, and I sit in the quiet, and I might go on a journey, or I might just do some affirmations. But all these objects that we have on altars only have the meaning that we attach to it. And
Right.
all by themselves, they're not necessarily sacred objects. There's a part of us that we imbue in these objects, and we get our goodness reflected back. So when I'm looking at a crystal that I love, or a photograph, or a feather that's really meaningful to me, there's a piece of me in that, and that's what I'm relating to. And they also represent the divine. Now, the feathers are always placed on the ground for me. They're always like, oh, I'm going walking from here to my car. This wasn't here 5 minutes ago, and there's an eagle feather, or not eagle feather, hawk feather.
Wow.
Feathers are, there are some of my objects that are from nature, the nature energies, the nature spirits,
Right.
which is the divine, which I am because I am human. So I have the benefit of feeling the oneness, really, when I gaze and put my attention on certain objects like feathers and stones. I collect river stones, shells from the ocean. So I have river stones for grounding. I have seashells for connecting with mother. I have, so anyway, I find that I love my little home. I'm by myself, so I get to decorate it any way I want. And having a couple of sacred spaces in my house is blessed. Actually, I had help with the person who was a feng shui practitioner,
Right.
put my house together. And she said, everywhere you look, you want to have something that's meaningful to you. You anywhere you move your head to, and everything should be kind of circular and not angular. So everywhere I look in my house, there's something that is meaningful, something that has a vibe that's lovely to me. So it makes my whole house a sacred space for me.
Well, I was going to say, I've been to your house. Your house is a sacred space. You feel it when you walk in.
Yeah,
you know.
people that are sensitive do feel it. Yeah, and I've worked hard at keeping this a sacred space, and because I work with people here, where I'm,
Right.
I want people to walk in and feel, and I want to feel that way. And if I feel that way, I'm more likely to spread it around. So it starts with me. Everything starts with me, right?
Well, yes, and I think that, home, we have to feel at home in our skin, right? We have to.
Yeah.
I think sacred space can also be applied to the sacred space of the body. The body itself
Yeah.
is a sacred space. It's a
Yeah.
space where spirit chooses to dwell and work from.
Yeah.
And so we need to have that spiritual body connection, which of course, is what you've been doing for years, what I, as a chiropractor, have been doing for years, knowing that the body itself has the ability to heal itself given the right nutrients, decrease stress, the
And the
right
right and the right
alignment,
right
the
mindset.
right, yes, the right mindset. It takes a village really of your own, cells to to work in alignment. But I think that, and some people come in with physical challenges. That is part of the lesson that they have to be more careful. They might be more sensitive to environmental toxins, and they have to sort of live a different life. I think when you're sort of healthy and hale and you're not really having problems, you don't think about that. But and I think, not to bring, I don't really want to talk about um COVID necessarily today, because I think we spoke a little bit about it last time. But there's this sense that, there are people out there that are not as healthy as the rest of us, perhaps, and to no fault of their own. It's just the situation that they're in. And I think what this has helped us do, you know, perhaps not for everyone, is to make people more sensitive.
Mhm.
That, that walking in other people's shoes kind of thing. And I think that we need to really foster that, whether you are somebody who, goes with the scientific side of things, or if you go with, another perspective. I still think we need to be open to other people's points of view without necessarily judging them immediately. I mean, you got to talk to
I
people.
think the way to look at that, if you don't mind me interrupting for 1 second, I think I'm learning how to use the word preference, because preference doesn't have judgment in it. And I'm entitled to my preferences, and you're entitled to your preferences, and everybody is entitled to each his own preferences. So if I can look at someone who's different than me as having and say that, oh, well, they're expressing their preferences. It sort of takes the judgment out. It takes the sting out. It's like they're doing what I do. I pick my preferences and they're picking theirs, and I don't have to agree. I don't have to be angry. I'm sorry.
There's also a certain amount of, if you live in a society where there's an issue, you have to be willing to make some concessions in
Mhm.
order to live in that society. So, it kind of works both ways. We have to respect, each other's perspectives, points of view, and yet we still have to be cognizant of the fact that sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, or that, we're put in situations that don't make us, feel like we have total agency. But I think there's a certain amount of surrender that has to come with that as well, because we don't, as individuals, egos living this life, interacting with the physical plane, we don't have the whole story. And
No.
sometimes we just have to trust that whatever it is on some level serving our growth. And I think if you have that attitude, because I think a lot has to do with attitude,
Mhm.
right? I think if you have that attitude, things become less of an issue, and maybe you don't have to necessarily, like, to me, issues are boundary lines which you're trying to somehow navigate. Like, where is the edge? Where is the edge of whatever it is that either you believe in or that, and then and then we're challenged at those edges
Yes.
to be at least willing to see another perspective, and in some cases break through to another perspective.
Mhm.
There's a lot of that breaking through, I think, that's happening. And I think there's so much interconnectedness now because of technology that many of us, we're all having our own personal breakthroughs, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly in the spiritual community, I can see it happening.
Yeah. Even,
Um,
even people that are not in the spiritual community or that don't consider themselves spiritual or changing, they are spiritual anyway. I mean,
well,
they
of course, they're spiritual beings, but that's my perspective. See, I'm seeing that because those are the people that I'm interacting with. But I think there's all these other places, if you look, that there's break things are breaking through in those areas as well. So um, I don't have the benefit of, excuse me, having children or grandchildren. So I don't really know what young people are, I used to be a young person. Like when I say I don't know what the young people think, I'm like, wow, that's weird. I like always considered sort of myself a young person. I don't think I've ever considered myself a grown up. Uh, but and I still wonder, I'm like, am I grown up? I don't know.
it's interesting to be in the age group that we're in, because there's a part of us that's still young and joyful and excited and interested in lots of things, curious, and all those young qualities that we had when we were children. They're still there. And
Right,
we look
it,
in the mirror and go, ah, what? I can't dance for 4 hours anymore.
I
What?
know.
What happened? How
Yeah.
come?
Well,
I
well,
danced a little bit this morning, but 10 minutes now. That's more
compared to an
like,
hour in the old days.
oh
I
yeah,
was I
more,
was
more.
watching Sadhguru. Have you ever seen him?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I love him. He was talking about the physical, like the physical body and just physicality and matter. And he says it's the nature of matter to be recycled. It's the
Mm.
nature of matter to be recycled. And so there is the nature of, you know, growing, stopping growing, and then the decline, and then get
We're
another
growing in other
opportunity.
ways, as our body might be getting older, but we're growing in other ways, don't you think?
Well, yeah, of course. But his point was, you can recycle the physical, but you can't recycle the mind. So it's when you sort of recycle thoughts in your head that's when you come, because the mind, he says, should be open.
Um,
So uh
you-
so an open mind is a powerful, I think, a powerful tool for compassion.
it's a powerful tool for navigation of the planet. An open mind means that you're not going to be triggered by every person that's different than you, or doing things that you might not do or don't necessarily even believe in, but meeting someone where they're at and saying, well, wouldn't be my preference, but okay for you. An open mind just lets us accept and not resist. I've talked before about the power of resistance. When we're judging or wishing someone else was different, we're in resistance, we're not in receiving. And when we're open-minded, we're in receiving. So we might even be able to have a chat with someone that we don't agree with on 5 different things. And ordinarily we might argue, but this time we might find something interesting or curious about them and go, oh, I didn't know you did that or went there, and if we're open, we get to see other sides of these people, and it's not so black and white anymore. It's more expansive. Earlier, you said something about Guru saying something about the body and cells and stuff. And I know I've talked about cells before. One way that I make my body a sacred space or a sacred temple is to every morning, and people can do whatever they want with this, but I believe that cells are consciousness. I believe that the cells in our bodies, we have to take care of them and we have to love them just like we have to love our own consciousness. The more we love ourselves, the more puffed up with love they get, the more divinity they get, the healthier they are, and the better they work together. And that works on all dimensions. That idea is a
Right.
multidimensional idea, and
Yes.
includes ourselves. So in the morning, I go outside with my dog, and it's especially fun on a sunny morning, but I can do it in the rain. It's okay. I just visualize light coming in through my head, and every single cell, I go all the way down my body, imagining that all my cells are sparkling. They're all like little stars inside my body. I have trillions of little stars inside my body. And I tell my cells I love them. And I recommend this because it's really an uplifting thing to think I have God or source or higher power or whatever you want to call it in my cells. They live in my body. Isn't that
Right.
amazing? It's amazing. I have that amazing infinite intelligence living in my body. And attention, energy goes where attention flows. So you pay attention to how, and look at all I've recovered from. God,
Yeah.
I think of all it's amazing, but my body is amazing. And I think in part because I'm learning to love it. And it's been a long process. And it didn't start when I was young. I hated my body for many, many years. And it was a long journey toward loving my body.
Well, there's a lot of, sort of things piled against, or things, like lined up against the love of the body. Of course,
Oh, yeah.
the Judeo-Christian,
Oh,
idea that being born is sinful,
having
that
sex
life,
is sinful, pleasure is sinful, in some religions, dancing is sinful.
that life is sinful, that like coming into the planet makes you.
Right, you're
I
born.
mean, this is a Catholic idea. The original sin thing
Mhm.
is a Catholic. There's
Yeah, but you know what? Born again Christians and other types of Christians believe that they were born sinners. So it's a similar idea. They were born sinners, and they have to reconcile. And
well,
ask
I mean,
forgiveness.
it's a Catholic notion because I was raised Catholic, but it's a Christian notion, like, but of course it's nowhere near what Christ taught. I mean, it has nothing to do with what Christ taught.
Christ did not teach that.
No,
No.
actually, Christ, I think, the Christ came in to teach us another way,
Yes.
because I think maybe that original sin stuff maybe, and I'm no scholar, so don't quote me, but may come from the Adam and Eve, the Old Testament, the
Mhm.
whole fall of man, into but that's a symbolic story of
Sure.
our fall from unity into duality, and we live in a dual universe. So there's a need to understand both sides, but ultimately to come back together in unity. And what I see happening, like just politically, and even I was watching a thing on Democracy Now. They're doing a lot of bomb threats to these all
Oh,
black
I know.
universities. They're banning books all over the place now. They're getting into this sort of like fear, 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 fear. And we can look at that and say, oh my God, what's going to happen? Or we could look at that and, I think face it with a different sort of with love. Like, how do I want to put this? Because I don't want it to seem like the only way to really, I think, combat this sort of walling off and this, getting in on all these fearful enclaves, is to just open up to something that you don't know about, and be willing to explore that. And I think that the people who are doing a lot of that are the people who are afraid, who sense, I think, that the old structures are falling away, and there's really no. I don't really think there's a way that they're going to survive this. What can happen though is we can use the new technology to create a different kind of prison. So I think we have to be really careful about, all the things that, we have to have agency over ourselves, and yet we also have to like live in community with people. So there's a very fine balance there. And I think that we're coming to that realization. And I think in part 2022 is gonna bring some of that home for us.
I think that this book burning and the uh, racial hatred and racial acting out and other things, I could list more, but I won't. Two's enough. um, is just humanity saying, I'm frustrated, certain parts of humanity especially, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, and what can I do about it? And just like a little kid, when they're little, they throw temper tantrums and they learn how to outgrow that. But in a stressful situation, a 12-year-old might have a temper tantrum. I think that people, they're going back to old default modes because of fear. This book burning thing is historic. I mean, it's been, how many, we've had book burning, Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, had experiences of people burning her books, and certainly Christian heretics and witches, and anyone that was considered off the wall. There's been this kind of thing going on for centuries and centuries. So I like to look at this stuff as, well, humanity is just revisiting some old ways to express fear, old ways to act out feelings that they don't know what to do with because they're frustrated and they just can't think of anything else. They don't know what else to do. I don't think this is going to last. I don't think this is a long, forever thing. I think it's just like we've been through over and over and over again in the last few years, forever, actually. It's ugliness, it's mold, it's this icky stuff that's coming up to be released again. And it's going to be released. It's going to be released. And these people don't know any other way. They think that they can control everyone, what they read. They think they can control who has a college and who university and who doesn't. I mean, they're not going to make it with all that hatred. They're not going to make it. They're not going to survive. Something's going to implode. So
well, there's fear, and then there's also anger, which I think is healthier than fear, actually.
Well, it can be acted out in a more healthy manner, that's for sure.
Well, I guess, and like, okay, let's just I'm thinking of a good like story for this, but when we got our German shepherds, Gretchen and Boo, we got Gretchen as a puppy, so we had her from like, from the time she was 8 weeks old. So she was well trained, she was with Boo. We got, he was already 4 months old, and he hadn't been socialized in any way. He had been traumatized by his life where he was. He was kind of a scaredy cat. And he was like a 100-pound scaredy cat with teeth this long, So I was never really worried about Gretchen. Like if somebody came into the house, if somebody comes in and wants to break in, then good, go dogs, get them. But like just somebody walking in the house, Gretchen was always like, oh, who's this? Where Boo would be like, ah. And
how well I remember, dearest Boo.
Right. And the thing is,
of
the two dogs, Boo was more dangerous, not because he was afraid.
Fear
So,
and anger.
So it's when you feel like you don't have a choice, when you feel backed into a corner, that can be, and that's what I think what fear does. Fear sort of backs you into a corner, and anybody who comes poking around is going to get bit, right? Is going to get bit. Whereas if you have this feeling of like, you're angry and to me, anger is like an engine, and what we have to figure out how to do, I think, is how to focus it in a positive way. How to focus it and find out where, like, what's your issue and where can you put your energy, because that's what anger is. Anger is sort of like energy. You just don't know what to do. It's like builds up and builds up and builds up. Where you're going to put it to do the most good,
right?
Whether it's in your life or in the
activists are a good example of that. And there are so many wonderful organizers in the world that organize protests or that organize fundraising or whatever to work toward alleviating certain groups or people or institutions issues. So for example, there are people working for climate change, and they are carrying signs, they're raising money, they're working with scientists, they're working with researchers, they're working with legislators, they're trying to get their voices heard. They're angry that the world is apparently declining. They're angry about it. They don't like it. And amongst themselves, I'm sure they're like, Monsanto, whatever, whoever they're mad at. And they might express it verbally, but in their actions, they are expressing love for the planet. So when we're angry and we're moving in a direction of trying to heal something, right. That's a positive thing, even if we're angry. I mean, if we're doing things that might make a difference in the future, that's a positive way to channel anger. Anger is higher than on the vibrational scale than fear. I would rather run into an angry person than a severely fearful person. There's much more danger involved in fear. Anger, I mean, if someone is angry and acting out in a negative, violent way, there's a lot more going on. It's not just one thing going on. But you know what I'd like to, if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk a little bit about how you, and maybe me later, help people understand how to get from A to B, or how to face and deal with what is coming at them from the outside, from the news, from their whatever's going on in the world, from diseases, from institutions being blown up, from terrorism, from climate change, from whatever it is that they're bothered by, child abuse, domestic violence. I mean, we could go on and on. How do you help people with feelings that they have that are difficult for them to navigate?
I guess for me, it all comes down to self-knowledge, right? So, I utilize astrology, I utilize Kabbalah, numerology, different metaphysical disciplines over the years. I've studied, different kinds of astrology, different kinds of more of the occult sciences, just to kind of like get a peek into the bigger picture, right? And I mean, we can't really get bigger than the universe.
It's as big as we can know.
and the stars, as it were. And so for me, I think it's important to give people context to their lives. Like, people, for the most part, know themselves, but we tend to we might say things to ourselves. I'm a smart person. Why did I make that stupid choice?
Well, we don't always make the connections. And sometimes another outside person can help us make a connection.
Well, that's really what, for me, that's what astrology does.
Yeah.
And the Kabbalah, because it puts your energy into a context, and everything that happens outside of us that triggers us or makes us crazy or makes us feel good or is really giving us information about ourselves. Like, how do you really feel about that?
I know that your astrology has increased my self-awareness over the years so much.
And for me, if I could, it helps me to understand the people that I'm interacting with. So I can see the struggle that people have. And I think, were we talking about this yesterday?
Yes, we were a little bit.
About not, the 4 agreements, like the first one, take nothing personally.
Oh, so important.
It's so simple and so important. And lately I've had to do that mantra. Don't take things personally. Don't take things personally. Because I feel as though I'm a pretty understanding person, but sometimes
you're also very sensitive, and you are open. You feel other people's energy, and if you're not 100% aligned, you're tired, whatever, you might react.
Well,
and
it's not
that's
even
human.
that. It's like sometimes, I try to be as sort of step back and understanding and let people be who they are and come to an understanding of that. But sometimes that hurts me. Sometimes somebody will do something or say something, and I take it personally.
Mhm.
And maybe I get angry, or maybe it's usually I used to mostly get hurt. Now I tend to get like hurt, but then a little angry, which I think is
There's a
probably
word for
healthier.
that. There's
It's
a
a
word
little
for that.
healthier.
Self-righteous? I don't know.
No, it's not that. It's not that. It's just like, I'm doing my best to accept you. Can't you do your best to accept me? That's really where I think that feeling of like, hello, but
Yep.
that's me. And we have to allow people. And how do you know unless you come up against, people's edges? How do you know how far to go? And of course, as somebody who's highly sensitive, Cancer with a Pisces moon,
Don't get more sensitive than that.
sometimes I think I was having this conversation. We talked a lot yesterday, actually, but um, like sometimes I think I'm the best friend in the world, and other times I think I'm just like, I'm a terrible friend. I can't believe, like, I'm not even really sure if I'm a good friend, if I'm a bad friend, or if but I guess, for me, it has to be more about me. And I say that because my North Node in my chart, now this is where astrology comes in. My North Node, the direction of my evolution is in the house of the I am. So while I can be understanding to everybody else, I have to be who I am.
Mhm,
That's what I came in to learn and to do, to be me. Of
mhm.
course, when you're born and somebody's telling you you're one person and you find out, 48 years later that you're another person, you
Yeah.
can understand why, like, there might have been some confusion in the beginning, but it all serves. If I hadn't questioned my own identity throughout my life, I probably wouldn't have sought out astrology to figure out who I was, because
Everything serves.
everything serves.
Serves. There's
Everything.
nothing that doesn't serve. And Abraham Hicks has a phrase that I love, and I repeat it to anyone who listen because it helped me turn a corner in my life, and it's helped other people that I shared it with. You're never off your path. No matter what it looks like, no matter what it is, it's part of your path. You're not jumping out of your own uh, integrity. You're just exploring something else, and you're going to come back. So you're never off your path. No matter what it is, it's what you're supposed to be experiencing and learning from. It's all good. In the long run, it's all good. So no one is ever off their path. And that's comforting to me because, boy, there are times when I felt like I was off my path. That's for sure. I felt dissociated from the world, or I felt angry with myself, or upset, or hurt, or whatever. And learning that was like, oh, so those times that I suffer, or I do something that I'm not crazy about and I'm feeling a little off, that was a learning experience. That was part of my path. So okay, good. It's a part of my path. Very comforting to me.
For me, it's interesting because every now and again, I come to this, like, I have a, what's the word I'm looking for? I have a life view or a perspective on life,
Mhm.
like a worldview. That's it.
Worldview.
I
Yeah.
have a worldview of that. You know, there are lessons to be learned,
Yeah.
and if we just endeavor to learn them, and still have a sense that we have some agency,
Yes.
but ultimately our soul's in charge. So when I'm in a situation where I want to have agency and I don't because of whatever reason, right? A law or a situation or a relationship breaks up and there's nothing you can do about it. You know,
Mhm.
there's a certain amount of surrender to that, right? and
Right.
and, and acceptance. So I think life is a balance between acceptance of what you can't change, and a sense of agency that you have the power to direct your life in a more integritous manner. And integrity simply means wholeness. That's what the word
Right.
integrity means. So
Right.
when we're integritous with ourselves, we are taking all those disparate parts of ourselves and bringing it together.
Mhm.
In astrology, that's what the sun does. The sun is the integrative uh, thing. Everything gets integrated through the sun. So you're a Capricorn sun, and so you would integrate in a very sort of physical way, which you certainly have been doing. And
Yes.
me as a Cancer.
Oh, and emotional though. Yeah, for me, it's been all of it.
Well, I mean, I'm just talking about the sun in the chart. So
Just the
yeah, of
sun. Yeah.
course. I mean, absolutely. I've had physical issues, but my son is in Cancer, so it's integrating my feelings. It's like, what am I feeling and why am I feeling this? And perhaps maybe I spend a lot of time not necessarily avoiding feeling, but avoiding situations that might bring up feelings that are not necessarily pleasant.
Earlier, you said something about your life having to be all about you, or something like that. Forgive me if I
Yeah,
miss.
yeah. No, my North Node in Leo in the first house. That's what
Well,
that is.
I believe that 100%, that I am the most important person in my life, and that you are the most important person in your life. And one of my biggest challenges, and I'm doing well with it, is accepting the fact that sometimes um, people have to take care of themselves. They have to prioritize certain things in their life, which means I might get gently sort of put to the side for a little while. I don't know if it's my Mars and Aries, but sometimes I get impatient and I'm like, no, but I want it now. I want you now. I want to talk to you now. I don't want to wait 3 weeks. I want it now. And like, I get like frustrated. And then then I can turn it on myself and start to say, well, you're not all that lovable anyway. It's easy to go from frustrated with someone because I feel like they're not
Yes.
as close to, it's not a big jump for me to go from you're doing something, to take care of yourself, but that is interfering in my desire, to, well, you're a shit anyway,
Yeah. Well, that's
and
that's
then down the rabbit hole it goes. So this is
well, yeah,
my
that I
angle of
think
did not do that.
yeah, I think
Not to
that's
go down the,
I think that's a short trip for many people.
yeah,
I
it
I
can
think
be.
it's I think that's a habit that well, I don't know. It's certainly my habit. I can't talk about most people because I'm not
Well,
most.
but when I do that now, I have enough self-awareness from all the ways that I've gained self-awareness, including from you, to know that I'm lying again to myself. That's a lie. That's an old belief that was thrust on me forever ago by who knows who and where. I could name a
Well,
few.
it's a belief within yourself. It's not,
It's a belief
the
I
people on the
adopted as
outside,
mine that wasn't mine.
right.
It
The
wasn't good enough.
people, the people on the outside reflect what's on the inside. So if you're in a
Well,
situation and it makes you
experiences.
feel like you're not worthy or you're shit or who's going to love me anyway,
Mhm.
that's you. That's you thinking those things. The other person may have not even have that
I was,
in their.
understanding what I was referring to was those experiences I had as a young child that initially introduced me to those ideas. Not so much, yes, it's on me now, but when I was a kid, I adopted a bunch of ideas and behaviors and thoughts and whatever projections that weren't mine, that I've had to learn how to unlearn over the years.
Yes,
I
I
am
understand.
I am
Yes.
unlearning a lot of those old beliefs. Thank God, because I had a lot of old stuff thrust at me. And I
Well,
think,
if I could,
please,
in the way that I look at, like when I do the Kabbalah, there's something called the divine triangle that you can work with the numbers and your name
oh,
and stuff. And the first 27 years of life is sort of encapsulated in something called your youth square. And that holds the potential of your previous lifetimes. Like, what is it that you hadn't quite finished in your last life that come to you in this life in the guise of your family of origin? And so a lot of what you talk about, when I was a child and I had all these things put on me, that is your soul's choice to
Oh, that I
experience those
understand.
things.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
that's my point. My
I
point
get
is
you.
that, you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So ultimately it is us. But of
Ultimately, I
course, as a
with every
child,
that I learned, I own that. Yes, I hear your
yeah,
point.
you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? I mean,
I
that's my only point. I mean, being a child, you don't have agency.
No, but I chose the journey. I chose the parents. I
Yeah.
chose I
Yes.
chose the religion. I before birth. That and my soul knew what I had to learn. My soul knew what I needed to experience in order to expand. And we don't expand if we don't contract first. The contractions in our lifetime is what creates the desire to expand. So I bless it all now. I'm not mad at anybody anymore. And God knows I spent years mad at everybody. And I'm not mad at anybody because I recognize that it's my stuff, no matter where it came from. This is my journey.
And
And
you're in charge of your own mind,
I am.
right? And so and I think this is part of what we're discussing early in the beginning, is that, no matter what's going on in the outside world, you get to decide whether you're going to participate in that stream or if you're not.
Right.
And while it's important, I think, to be aware of what's going on in the outer world as a reflection, for me anyway, as to how's the evolution going, everyone, that's what that shows me. That's why I like to look. Michael, he doesn't like to watch the news. He's very sensitive, so it's really hard for him to watch the news because he doesn't like to see the suffering that he knows internally is going on. He feels it in himself. He doesn't need to hear about it
Right.
because the hearing about it makes it sort of spin in his head, and it's not good for him because,
Mhm.
like you, it's like his mind can like sort of go in pretty dark places,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so I think I lost my train of thought, but I think that it's in the beginning, like, it's like, what do you do with all of this? I think the initial like thought about this get together today, this high tea, is like, how do you manage to like walk through life with your eyes wide open? I actually today I wrote a little note to our friend Marianne in Australia, and
Oh, yeah.
I said we have to walk through the world with our eyes wide open. I said all three of them. So,
Absolutely.
so it's important. It's important to you to see what you're seeing, but also to intuit what you're intuiting, to integrate it
Yeah.
and see it in your own experience. And what is it trying to teach us?
One of
What
the things that I that helps me sort of figure out where I'm at vibrationally, where I'm at sort of emotionally on the vibrational scale or whatever, is to look around the people that I'm closest to, that I'm spending the most time with, and see how they're doing. And because we're all mirrors for each other. So the people that I'm the closest to will show me a piece of myself. And that's another way to gain awareness. So if everyone around me is sick, everyone around me is desperate, everyone around me is depressed, I have to go, whoa, what's going on with you, Denise? You know what I mean? I have to look at myself, because we see what we feel, we attract what we see. So, we have to take ownership of that.
it's vibrational.
All vibration.
It's vibrational. So it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's be, beholding to us to be aware of the vibration that we are expressing,
Yes.
right? And there have been times when I've questioned whether my perspective and my point of view is valid, or am I just kidding myself?
Mhm.
Right, I get to that, and that's usually the crisis that I come to, and it doesn't happen often, but it happened back when it happened back in like 2003 when we went into Iraq, and the whole Bush administration, that
Oh,
that
yeah.
8 years. I like struggled with the sense that um you know does it really matter what I think? Does it really matter the vibe I give out? Does it, I keep trying to go in this direction of peace and reconciliation. And it seems like the world outside is like not paying attention.
Well, ultimately, we have no control in any kind of major way over anything that anyone else has created. We have control over what we create, and we have choices, we have preferences, and we have agency over our own lives. And if we have a belief that a particular war is, I think they're all, personally, my preference is no war, of course, but
Yeah.
you know, we're all, if we're upset and irate about anything that's going out in the world, we have to just take that back and say, okay, first of all, why is this driving you so crazy? Is it triggering something in you that you can change? Or are you just that passionate about it that you need to do something like activism, or you need to help elect the right officials that will make the legislation, you know, work in politics to help, or donate, or whatever. I mean,
Right.
what is it? What can you do about it? Because you can't change anybody else.
Right.
Cannot go into anyone else's energy field and make anything different. We can only make ourselves different. And once we accept that, it's a gift, really, to know that whatever's going on in our lives is our own to fix.
And I think that's that. I thank you for that, because I think that's probably what I learned from the Bush administration.
Probably.
It's like, I have no influence here.
Yeah.
So I have to,
There's the serenity prayer situation.
Yeah, well,
right?
absolutely. There you go. It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just it's the whole bowl of wax, quite frankly.
One of the things that, if you don't mind, I just like to take 2 minutes to talk, and shut me down if I get
2 minutes. Come on, Denise.
I know.
Really?
I know.
All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm underestimating. Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about how I help other people in dealing with navigating the outside world, navigating relationships, navigating what's going on inside of themselves. A lot of times that's the real battle. You know, we get irate about what's going on out there because there's something going on in here that it triggers. So, you know, through my mentor program, I meet with people usually every 2 weeks. And one of the most important things, and it's interesting that this card came up. Now I know why this card resonated with me. I remember, I have words for sacred space. One of the things that's the most important thing for me, and probably for you too, because your place is very sacred, is to have an environment and an attitude and a mindset that makes people feel like they're walking into a safe place. One of the things that I'm really good at is helping people feel comfortable and safe. I don't threaten. My readings aren't scary. My mentorship isn't about, hey, you're wrong and you got to do that. Yeah, it's not authoritative. It's very cooperative. It's very feminine business model. I have a feminine business model, and meaning a cooperative, integrated approach. So I get a lot of information from people, and I don't, unless they ask me, I don't say, if they say, do you think I'm right or wrong? I'll say, what do you think? I like people to come out. I don't want to have any power over anybody. I want to facilitate people thinking things through on their own and coming to their own decisions.
Yes.
I have to rein my personality in, and I've learned how to do it, and I'm successful now. But over the years, I've had to rein myself in because I just wanted to give everybody an effing prescription. Everyone that came to me, all right, I know exactly what you need. Dun, 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 dun. And I still give homework, but I don't give prescriptions. So when I help people in the mentor capacity, it's really about helping them feel safe, helping them relate to their own divinity and whatever that might be. And I'm a translator of spiritual ideas, practices, and languages. So people can come in being an ethical atheist, and I can work with them just as easily as I can work with someone who's a Catholic or a pagan. It's really important to me that I accept all faith-based traditions or non-faith-based traditions. So I think that helps people feel safe. And my readings are always solution oriented. Sometimes stuff comes up for people, like in the readings, that might indicate some sort of up or down or back in or out or relationship issue or health issue or whatever. But I ask my guides to give me the information that's the most helpful. So if I feel that there's something, off with driving, let's say, like I feel like there's something going on around a car that might not be great. The advice, how it comes to me is tell them to be careful when they're driving in snow. Be extra careful while you're driving in snow. Be aware and keep your eyes open and don't drive when you're tired in the snow. That's how it comes to me. And then that person has an option when they get in the car to drive in the snow. They can go, oh yeah, Denise said something about.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to plant a seed of
I will never say you're going to get into a car accident, because people have 10 million choices to make before that car accident could happen. It's only a potential.
That's right.
It's a potential. So if I make people aware of the potentialities, then they make their own choices. I don't tell them what to do. I don't say, don't drive your car in the snow. But that wouldn't be beyond my personality to be bossy like that. But I would do that when I'm in my work.
All right, your 2 minutes is up.
Okay.
No,
what do
I'm only
talk
kidding.
about?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't have a watch. You can say I don't have a watch. What am I talking about?
I probably already talked 5 minutes.
It's all good.
The last thing I'd like to talk about is my channeling and my reading. I think that, like your astrology, it really helps people understand themselves a little bit better. And my intention is so high and so pure. And my intention is honestly to be a vehicle of highest wisdom that is of the highest and best for the person or the people that I'm reading for or channeling for. And I feel this all the way through my whole being, that is the biggest intention I have, is to bring in light and reflect light, and bring in wisdom and reflect wisdom, so that people can see clearly where they need to go. And it's all about, like you said, self-awareness. I think that's very similar. We have a similar desires to help people gain more self-awareness. And I also have a very strong background in social work and therapy and counseling and stuff like that. So sometimes I help people process through blocks or trauma. I do a lot of trauma work. I really help people with trauma often.
Well, what I would say in my experience with your readings is you're like a love muffin, quite frankly. You sit in the space with the person in total acceptance of who they are, open to the promptings of spirit and what spirit has to say, whether it's, God, Goddess, all that is, whether it's your higher self, whether it's their higher self, whether it's Mother Mary, whatever it is, these higher vibrational frequencies. And really, you talk about sacred space. When we do our readings, when you do your readings or your mentoring, or when I do my astrology or my Kabbalah readings, you're holding a space and an intention to enlighten in whatever way that you can. And it has to be a love space.
Love.
One of my teachers said, you can never heal somebody you judge. And so for true healing, you need to hold back the judgment of a person. You need to accept them for who they are and where they are and what they are, while reminding them that, to a certain extent, that is something that they have agency to perhaps change.
Well, they can decide what direction to go in. Everyone has agency, and sometimes they don't know what directions they can possibly go in. So someone like you or myself can offer options and say, well, like someone in a relationship issue, I think I want to break up with him. That's one option. Is there anything you think that's worth salvaging at all? If you think that, then maybe we could work on ABC or whatever. I mean, I try to help people see what the options are. I don't want to have any control over anyone's life. When I'm
Right.
doing a
Well, you
reading,
don't. You're wise
I
enough
know
to
that.
know
So I
that we
really
barely
want
have
to try.
control. We barely have control over our own lives.
And I want people to know that I don't control their lives. I think that's the most important thing. I don't try. It's not my intention. It's not what I do. I will help you explore everything that you need in
Right.
order to. And readings are, I separate mentorship and readings, and it's a arbitrary separation because the same sorts of things happen in mentoring that happen in readings. It's very similar, and it's just short term or long term. That's the basic difference. And we go more deeply, of course, into stuff
Right.
in the mentor program than we might in a reading. But I love my work, and I know that I'm in the right place. I've been doing it for a long time, part-time for a long time, but and then full-time for the last 10 years, 30 years altogether. I've been doing this type of work, and there's
Me
nothing
too.
better. There's
Me,
nothing better than
me
doing
too.
what you love. People say, "Oh, aren't you going to retire? You're 65. You could retire." I'm like, why would I want to give this up?
What's retire?
Well,
What is that?
personally, I'm probably going to have to bring in income for the rest of my life. I'm pretty sure, but I don't. Why give this up? Because it's not even work. When you're doing what you love, it's
Income,
hardly
you know
work.
what? Income is simply what's coming into you, right?
Yeah.
It's not about, this is something else. And I kind of lived this way my whole life, which I didn't realize until recently, is that I just stay open to the possibility of my needs being met, and my needs, and everything I need will be brought to me.
Do you know, I have a mantra for that, just that same thing. My mantra
Okay.
is money rolls in, money flows in, money flows out, and I always have more than I need.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
I
And
think I think a lot of people are be doing that mantra this
I
year.
teach everybody that, because money flows in, money flows out, and I always have more than I need. And that's the truth.
All right, so we have to wrap this up
We
because
do.
I
We
think
do.
we've actually been on over an hour.
We have.
Sorry, everybody. But this is such an interesting conversation.
Yes, it
So
is.
if anybody wants to look into your readings or your mentorship program, they can contact you at onemindspiritualguidance.com, correct? Oh my
OneMindSpiritualServices.com.
God, I am so sorry.
No, it used to be guidance. You're not really
Okay.
wrong. It's just that I changed it to spiritual a few years ago.
onemindspiritualservices.com. I'll put it in the descriptor below. If you want to contact me, you can contact me at the Seeds of Transformation.com. I'll put that below as well. And thank you as always. It's just been a lovely way to spend. And I have no tea either. This is high tea. I don't have any
water, but I was just so engrossed in the conversation, I didn't even think to drink any.
I have nothing to imbibe here, but the grace that happens when we get to hang out together and talk about spiritual things. Thank you so much, Denise. I really appreciate
Totally a
it.
pleasure as always, Vicki. And hello to all of Vicki's viewers, and hello to all of my viewers. This will be going up on my channel too, which is Reverend Denise M. Roberge. And on YouTube.
Yes. All right, sweetie. I will see you again
I
soon.
can't wait.
All right. Take
Lots
care,
of love.
everyone. Namaste.
Namaste.